Good morning. A couple of notes, things that may be of interest, and some of this will be a little more down in the weeds related to the All Hazards Communications Unit. The Interoperability Communications Advisory Council, which is working on changes to the communications unit structure, completed a two-day meeting out in Sacramento yesterday. Preliminarily hearing that the FEMA NIC, which is the NIMS Integration Center, who's overall in charge of NIMS, will be taking a advisory stance with the work of the ICAC committee to study changes to the communications unit. They did not approve the recommendation to create a communications section or even a communications branch, but instead took it back under advisement and will use the ICAC along with the FEMA group to determine changes to NIMS. As I've reported previously, changes in NIMS happen at a glacial pace, and you can see what's happening. We're a little ahead of the curve with some of the planning and effort being made to develop changes specifically to incorporate the Information Technology Services Unit leader, but at least some movement is occurring. I was told that the Wildland Fire Group was particularly in favor of the change, which is good news. They've been somewhat reticent to see changes to their corporate structure in the past. Related to the All Hazards Communications Unit leader, I think I mentioned last month that there were some changes being brought forward as a result of the 2017 NIMS refresh. ECD will be delivering 2 classes in the next 6 weeks, one in Wichita and one in Los Angeles, where we will incorporate the new COML curriculum content. That pushes the class to 30 to 32 hours. What was a 24-hour class will be somewhat longer. We hope to trim that back a little bit, but we're starting with the FEMA contractor supplied content. In the case of what we're doing in Wichita, we're going to try to do this as a 10-hour day to see if we can compress the training and not ask for 4 days from student candidates. LA will be just the opposite. It'll be 4 8-hour days, and we're hoping that we'll be able to make some progress to compress this again. For those of you who are historians, we actually had a 4-day COML class for a short time when we spent what I considered countless hours drilling through what the FEMA Planning P was all about. Between the videos and the PowerPoint and the vest wearing, it was like going back to ICS 300 class for those of you who have enjoyed that. Meanwhile, the ITSL course update, we are continuing to make some progress with delivery on that. We're getting really good feedback from the IT community that we think we will be able to bring that class into a little bit tighter delivery. What was initially thought to be a 5-day class, like the COMT, the All Hazards Communications Technician, we're pushing to try to get that down to about 4 days. I had a multi-slide PowerPoint to show you what the ICS 205B looks like, but let's wait a couple of months. I'll show that to you at the appropriate time. I think you'll be intrigued because for those of us who are purists with the COML doctrine and the true ICS 205, the ICS 205A with the phone list and the 205B, which now includes the resource list for IT, including the help desk. I think Wally's seen it. It's pretty intriguing. We're actually bringing this together, and it does feel a lot like a family, if you will. Let me think, what else? We covered, Chris, I had to step out, and I think you were mentioning that the COML class that was requested, you were waiting feedback. I had a call with headquarters this morning. I just received the memo for the record that the course has been approved. We will need 15 students to conduct the class, and hopefully we can pull this off before the end of the calendar year, so we'll need to spin up something. I asked for flexibility so that we can maintain focus on getting your SCIP workshop done before we start promoting another TA. Iowa has previously had a couple of the tactical dispatch, or what we call interoperable tactical dispatch classes. On Monday, I participated in a call where we kicked off a tasking to U.S. Navy Information Warfare Command. That's our contractor, used to be called SPAWAR, to develop a train the trainer course so that this can be delivered locally. The intent is to bring that class which we have a lot of pressure from the dispatch community that there's interest in the class. We just don't have the resources to deliver all the classes that are being brought forward or asked that are being brought forward. So looking forward to doing something to bring that as a state offered resource within the next year. Probably not as much of interest to Iowa, but just so you're aware, ECD has been leading a work group within SAFECOM and the National Council of Statewide Interoperability Coordinators to develop a next generation 911 readiness checklist. This has been about a 1-year effort. It builds on the FCC's Task Force on Optimal PSAP architecture and is an interactive spreadsheet type of self-assessment tool. It's being briefed at NENA next week, and I'll be doing a pretty deep dive with State of Missouri next week at their governance meeting. Iowa and Kansas, frankly, are pretty well along and ahead of this process, but for those entities who are not as mature in developing a strategy to implement next gen, I think it's going to be a useful evolution. Just for awareness, if you haven't heard already, FEMA is going to do another National Emergency Alert System test on 7 August. This will be different from the last couple where we used IPAWS to push the messaging in a quick, rapid dissemination. And I think our latest numbers show that about 61% of people got the message via this little gadget last time. This one will be done without the use of the internet. We're going to push it over the old broadcast methodology using the FEMA primary stations. And this is actually a test of resiliency. What would you do if the only way we can get the message to the public is the old school way, which is broadcast messaging? And then it loops back to feed the other alert systems. So just announced August 7th, and more to come on that. Looking forward to supporting you on the cybersecurity awareness webinar and the upcoming technical assistance that Chris covered. Did you announce the dates for the SCIP workshop? I apologize that I had to step out.
No, I did not, actually.
I believe we had 9 and 10 September, the 2 days before the September board meeting, and my notes show location TBD still.
It'll probably be Des Moines.
Okay, in Greater Des Moines. So half-day sessions, the day, 2 days before and the day before, but the intent is to bring all of the activity that's coming out of the webinars for the working committees to drive that workshop and then hopefully bring that to a close the day before the Isicsb meeting in September. So 9 and 10 September, Greater Des Moines. Read another little fun statistic this morning about cybersecurity, and I always try to close with ever vigilant. We had over 740 entities attacked yesterday in the state of, well, won't say the state, but let's just say that the vulnerabilities are numerous. Numbers still tell us 91% of attacks originate from phishing. Phishing, that's what you and I control by our actions and interactions with cyber and with email. 14 attacks, an attack happens now every 14 seconds in the US against an entity. And what I've been reading in the last week about public safety agencies who are being victimized keeps me awake at night. Still no impact to dispatch in the traditional sense, but the stuff is out there in the wild. There was a huge series of updates from Microsoft, Adobe, and others this week. Stay patched, stay vigilant, stay suspicious. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.